Hello everyone and welcome to the Academic Alehouse. I am your host Clayton. I am joined as always by my co-host Ryan.
Hello, hello.
If you hear any deviations in the audio, it is because we are recording from two separate locations this week. I had some family obligations that I needed to attend to. So,
And like a true loyalist, I stayed in the studio like I was supposed to. Like a good little noodle. Let's go with the word noodle.
so what are you drinking?
As for the cultured part of the show, I am drinking a Weinstefaner Hefeweißbier Dunkel. So it's a dark wheat beer from Bavaria, Germany. As is custom, I will be taking the first sip of it on the air. This particular brew is bottled in the state of Bavaria by Weinstefan in Friesling, Germany. It's a brand I like, right up there with Paulaner. And I will continue throughout the coming weeks my deviation from wheat beer onto different beers like the wheat beer Dunkel. And how about you? What are you drinking?
I do not have Angry Orchard, Mike's Hard Lemonade, or Smirnoff Ice this week. I went with the hard liquor again. Crown and Coke.
Alright, I'll put my gavel down for now.
Anyway, take a picture of that beer. With the bottle.
I will gladly take
The glass and the bottle. I have an idea for that. But addressing that later.
I will gladly do that.
So, we will start things as always within the news. I did run across a couple of headlines that I thought would be interesting, but we need to be quick about it because we're covering something big this week for our main topic.
Oh, Jesus. Alright. Fire away, my friend.
So, I don't know if you heard, but Beto, our dear senator from Texas,
Oh, God.
has gotten into a small Twitter spat with a fellow senator.
Say it ain't so. Who could see that coming? Please, go into detail.
Well, you are aware of Beto's gun buyback, something I'm sure will come up if in our main topic at one point.
Well, you mean his stupid plan for stupid people? Yes, I'm aware.
This senator said on Twitter that his AR-15 was ready.
Oh, boy.
And that was it. And that should have been the end of it. But Beto, of course, because he's a moron, does not understand how the Second or First Amendment work. So he very quickly, he said, this is a threat, and this man should be charged with threatening me.
Oh, God. That's okay. I can top that.
Go for it.
Are you ready? Are you ready for what I saw? I don't even have a Twitter because I despise everything social media stands for. Someone, actually, I don't know who tweeted it, but I can send it to you later if I need to, tweeted that if you're a law-abiding gun owner and they pass a mandatory buyback law and you do not comply, you are no longer a law-abiding gun owner and therefore are too criminal to have an AK-47 or AR-15.
Good Lord.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a tweet that's going around. It's beautiful. The responses have been moving.
$5 says it's from Black Twitter.
I don't know who posted it. It was some guy with an H in his last name. Somebody who's not important. With the point being that this has just ignited the whole damn thing all over again. And it's going some interesting places. So apparently they can threaten to take your guns, but if you threaten to fight for the Second Amendment, you're threatening them, therefore eligible for red flag laws.
Yep.
I'm threatening to violate the Constitution. I'll defend the Constitution. By promising to defend the Constitution, you've therefore threatened me, which is a red flag law, so you no longer are protected under the Constitution.
Correct.
That is some mental gymnastics that is so damn impressive, it should be an Olympic sport.
Agreed.
Mental gymnastics.
I was about to say
Brought to
that.
you by the American left. All right, I'm taking my first sip of this Dunkel beer. 1 second here.
All right.
Smooth.
All right. So, our main topic tonight is you and I, being the political animals we are,
Oh, God.
followed and listened to the Democratic debate that occurred.
Again,
I
against
think it
my
was
will, just mind you.
on the 12th, so last Friday.
I don't know, but it was definitely against my will.
Regardless, we watched the debate, and so and we have some clips we're gonna play. The most interesting clips I thought of the night that we're gonna play for y'all, and then we'll give comment afterward. Now then, that being said,
Be still my beating heart.
what do you think? You listened to this with me. What did you think?
Well, I'm not sure what I'm more mad about. The politicians promising to violate the judicial system and the Constitution, or the crowds that are cheering them. Honestly, all of these debates have been such a farce and such a perversion of the American political system. And the people who are propagating it are so far out of the realm of what I believe it means to be an American that just watching them, I feel like, is borderline causing me physical pain. And, there's nothing we can do to fix that kind of stupidity. We've got our lovely Robert Francis O'Rourke pledging to kick down doors and take AR-15s, although who he expects to do that wasn't mentioned. We've got Kamala Harris, who about halfway through the debate, her entire voice changed, and she sounded like a different person, who was it sounded to me like a stoned teenager talking about politics. Then you've got Joe, who might have known where he was, and honestly, out of the whole pack, out of everyone there, the only person who sounded like they actually prepared for the debate was Andrew Yang, who I politically disagree with, but at least I could listen to him. I could hear him. Every question Bernie got asked, he talked about income inequality or something like that. Every question Kamala got asked, she just threatened to pervert the judicial system. Yang said, here's my plan, here's how I plan to do it, and the media crucified him for it. And at one point in the debate, I'm pretty sure I heard Joe Biden say he wanted the other guy's question. He didn't want to answer the question they asked him, he wanted the other guy's question. He said that at a debate, and nobody laughed, and I thought it was funny as hell. That's my take from the debate. It was a circus. It makes the 2015 debates, which were reality television, look like academic debates. These fluctuated wildly between circle blowjobs, of everyone blowing each other, to everyone agreeing with each other, but slightly different. And it seemed like a race to the bottom to me. Who can promise the most stuff, and who can promise to hate Trump more? I didn't get a lot of substance out of that debate. I really didn't. That's my take on it. The whole thing was a waste of my life. Much like many things the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, but we're talking about the Democrats this week. Many things the Democratic Party do. Waste of my time, waste of my life. I don't feel like a better or more whole person for having listened. I'm more afraid than I was a week ago, but I'm not afraid of the government. I'm just afraid that stupidity is contagious, and there's not enough Lysol in the world to fix that problem. Your take?
Honestly, that the Democrats should have crowned Elizabeth Warren their candidate initially. They're going to go with Biden. Shockingly enough, I'm probably going to disagree with many of the polls. I think Castro did the best out of this whole field, but he's too far down the field to be any sort of irrelevance.
Doesn't matter. All the talk is about Beto. Sorry, Robert Francis O'Rourke. Everyone's talking about what he had to say. He made the most bombastic claim of the night, and that's where the media is
Yeah, Beto did well in this debate, I think, as well. Just, he's, again, too far down the field. What's most likely going to happen, and I've heard this from my political internet, is that he's most likely trying to set himself up to run not in a national election again, but in a local election. Try and get
Great,
the
it's still gonna be my fucking problem.
trying to get the governorship of Texas and or into the Texas Senate, because the Democrats, I think this was a rumor way early on in the primaries, like before the field really had thinned out to a great extent, that the Democrats were going to focus on Texas and try and flip it.
Well,
Interesting strategy.
I don't know how Texas would take to. I don't know how Texas would take to being flipped, but even the blue Texans still like their guns around here, and he's appealing to the most radical left section of the party. I'm not sure this is going to help his chances in Texas after his little escapade
Yeah.
during the debate, which is great because I consistently think that he is the worst politician in the state of Texas, and we have some pretty bad ones. Has anyone ever looked at John Cornyn? Like, just looked at him.
I mean, we'll get to that.
He a rhino.
We'll get to that later, because I definitely have that timestamped for comment. But this is the. I forgot what I was gonna say. Shit.
Wow,
Oh well.
one shot of liquor and suddenly you lose your mental abilities.
Yeah, I know, right? It's been a trying 2 days.
Drinking hard,
Regardless.
high APV beers like a man and not losing my memory. Who are you?
But even if they do flip Texas, like, Texas is not gonna flip. They don't have the support base. I remember what I was gonna say. He got a standing ovation for that statement at a historically black college, in fairness, so he's pandered. So
in Houston.
He is in the right place to get a standing ovation for that, but it does signal to me that they do have a base. He does have a base here.
In Houston, yes. Big shocker. Big city, he has a base. But most Texans don't live in the city.
That's true.
This isn't California, where LA and San Francisco determine the fate of the whole state. While Austin, Houston, San Antonio, all those places have fallen to the Democratic Party, a lot of Texans live out in the hills, and those hills get votes, and those votes matter.
Yep.
They're trying to get enough people in these cities to where it's like California, where they only need to control 1 or 2 districts to control the state. But as it stands, that's not Texas. They can get all the standing ovations they want in Houston. You know as well as I do that even though the center of Houston might be blue, all of the areas around it are deep red. And the further out you go, the worse that gets.
But even then, it wouldn't work. Even then, that strategy wouldn't work, because Houston, at least, I believe, is divided between at least 4 districts.
It is. So the point being is they're trying to flip Texas, and that's been no secret. And the invasion of Californians into Central Texas is no secret. But if he's trying to play for a local election, he's selling shirts that say, "Hell yes, I'm coming for your AR-15." He's drawn his line in the sand as far as Texas is concerned. Now, where Texas goes, that's TBD. We'll go down that road later. But I think we all know.
All right, so let's get to these clips, because there's a few of them, and while they're only a minute, we're probably going to run over. So we'll start with the first one right now. Oh, and it's Harris's opening message to Trump in her first statement.
I have a few words for Donald Trump, who we all know is watching. So, President Trump, you've spent the last 2.5 years full-time trying to sow hate and division among us, and that is why we've got nothing done. You have used hate, intimidation, fear, and over 12,000 lies as a way to distract from your failed policies and your broken promises. The only reason you've not been indicted is because there was a memo in the Department of Justice that says a sitting president cannot be charged with a crime. But here's what you don't get. What you don't get is that the American people are so much better than this. And we know that the vast majority of us have so much more in common than what separates us, regardless of our race, where we live, or the party with which we're registered to vote. And I plan on focusing on our common issues, our common hopes and desires, and in that way unifying our country, winning this election, and turning the page for America. And now, President Trump, you can go back to watching Fox News.
So that was Kamala Harris's opening statement. It was interesting, to say the least. She's not very...
My eyes are bleeding.
So, highlights, I think, if you tuned her out, as I'm sure many of our audience did, 12,000 lies. 12,000 lies, apparently, Trump has said. And apparently that his hatred and his racism or whatever is why we've gotten nothing done. And why his policies have failed. You know, just ignoring the fact that Congress won't pass anything for him. Despite him going through them multiple times to try and fund the wall, which is really his only policy. Everything else he's done. He's gotten us out of the Iran deal. Well, he started issuing tariffs against China. He's kept his promises to the letter for the most part. The wall is the only big one, and he's really just been hamstrung by Congress and the Ninth Circuit because they don't like him.
Okay.
So, Miss Harris, where is the lie?
Who's been paying attention? Well, the fact that it's not done yet can be packaged as a lie. Don't you know how this works? It's a lie if it hasn't been done immediately.
Fair enough.
Despite the fact that I'm pretty sure the military is putting the wall up now, or something along those lines.
Yeah, I think the funding's going through the Pentagon.
It is, which, you know, God knows they probably got enough money in their basement to fund 3 walls.
Good Lord, yes. I think I saw a news article that the Pentagon was stopping like 127 different projects to fund the wall. But
is this the same Pentagon that lost like $10 billion?
Probably.
Some crap like that. I don't have sympathy. Sorry. Next.
But there was something else interesting about this statement. Do you remember what it was?
I have a feeling you're going to tell me. I think the fact that she's allowed to speak publicly is interesting.
That there was a memo in the Department of Justice that the sitting president cannot be charged with a crime.
Yes. Although, you know, I'm going to laugh in Richard Nixon.
I mean...
And Bill Clinton.
Yeah, so what's the impeachment process for? If we're not going to charge the sitting president with a crime, why does impeachment exist? And why, then, if you believe, Miss Harris, that he has committed said crime, are you so...
Which crime is that? She's accusing him of lying to the American people? Because let's be real, if that's a crime, half of D.C. should be executed.
Agreed. But I think she means, like, she probably implies that collusion... She's probably alluding to the Russia thing.
Which was disproven.
Yeah, doesn't matter. It's a political tool she will bludgeon Donald Trump with, despite the fact that she's no longer a viable candidate. Regardless, she's going to use every tool in her toolbox to attempt to regain viability. She didn't, but, you know, fair play to her.
She gave it the old college try.
Historically black college try.
Let's not go down that road.
But regardless, why then, Miss Harris, did you not seek the impeachment of Donald Trump when you were still in office? Before presumably suspending your congressional duties to go on the presidential campaign trail.
Isn't there a current impeachment thing going on in, like, the House or the Senate? It's happening, because the party's divided over it. I was reading about it the other day, how Pelosi keeps telling them that this is political suicide. But, The Democratic politicians have just said, screw it, Leroy Jenkins, in we go.
No, because I think it was AOC. AOC definitely put something forward, but it died on the House floor.
And
like even the Democratic Party wouldn't sign off on it.
When was this? Because I just read about this 2 days ago.
Oh, she must have done it again. They must have done it again then. Because the last I heard about this was like back in June or something.
Oh no, I was reading about this a couple days ago.
Yeah.
About how there's a new impeachment bill on the House.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know who put it forward. I'm not interested in it because it's not going to get past the Senate. I mean, I'm not too worried about it. But I know that it was telling that the party was divided over it and that Pelosi was furious, but that it was proceeding forward either way.
It's a shocker.
You know it's a weird day when Pelosi is the voice of reason.
Yeah, but she's been in D.C. since the Dark Ages, so, it's not shocking that she'd be...
I mean, I'm not saying Pelosi's old, but I am saying Nixon walked by and probably clocked that ass a couple times.
Damn. That's gross.
Am I not supposed to... Probably, but,
that's some gross imagery you just put in my head.
Yeah, it is, but maybe when Nixon was in office, everything was where it was supposed to be. Maybe.
Fair enough.
Maybe.
So our next clip...
Get that image of Tricky Dick just eyeballing all that is Nancy. Let it flow through your head and know that I hate you.
It's a skeleton. Why would... It's basically eyeballing a skeleton.
So, we're getting close to Halloween. That fits in the demographic. Why not?
Alright, whatever. Our next clip will be Joe Biden's opening statement. So hang on to your hats for this one, because this one's going to be fun.
President
Joe Biden.
When President Kennedy announced the moonshot, he used a phrase that sticks with me my whole life. He said, we're doing it because we refuse to postpone. Well, I refuse to postpone one more minute, spending billions of dollars on curing cancer, Alzheimer's, and other diseases, which if we invest in them, we can find cures. I refuse to postpone giving every single child in America, no matter their zip code, pre-K, all the way through high school and beyond. I refuse to postpone any longer taking on climate change and leading the world in taking on climate change. Look, this is the United States of America. There's never been a single solitary time when we've set our mind to something we've been unable to do it. We're walking around with our heads down like, woe is me. We're the best equipped nation in the world to take this on. It's no longer time to postpone. We should get moving. There's enormous, enormous opportunities once we get rid of Donald Trump.
The Democratic frontrunner, ladies and gentlemen.
The fuck was that?
I mean, apparently it's no longer time to postpone, and children, no matter their zip code, will get pre-K through high school as something.
Arctic nipple titty sprinkle. That makes about as much sense as what he said. Shit.
Yeah, this is their man. This is the Democratic Party's best foot forward. This is the man the DNC hopes will beat Trump. The man who had an eye bleed on the last debate stage.
Hear me out. I think we should elect him.
Why? Why? I need to hear this. Because this may be the best thing ever.
Do you remember when George W. was president?
Vaguely, I was young.
Nobody ever missed a speech. Do you know why?
Because it was too good to miss.
Exactly. Now imagine, if you will, that we hand the nuclear football to crazy Joe Biden.
You mean creepy Uncle Joe?
Just for... Also that. Not only is he coming for your capital, he's coming for your daughters. I just want you to realize that at some point, it is very possible that if we elect Joe Biden, halfway through through the UN meetings, he will believe he's Julius Caesar. And that in and of itself would be scary enough to our enemies that for the next 4 years, they're just going to go, nah. Like, picture it this way. If you were going to fight some guy, and before you fought, he stripped down naked, cut himself, and started screaming in a tongue that you didn't understand, and then pulled a knife out, would you want to fight that person anymore?
Why the fuck do I feel like that happened on a Survivor episode?
It might have, but my point is, on the international stage, I feel like Joe Biden is so far gone at this point, he would strip naked on the UN floor and dare somebody to challenge him in hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah,
and honestly, if I were Vlad Putin, I wouldn't want a piece of that.
I wouldn't want to see. I wouldn't want to see that.
My point is, if we elect Crazy Joe for the next 4 years, we won't have enemies.
Well, I would get behind you on that. But if
he might declare war on Poseidon,
I might be able to get behind you on that. The problem is I don't want a corpse as our president, and God knows he'll pick Elizabeth Warren as his running mate, and she'll just be the first. She'll just be the first female president by default.
Weekend at Biden's, where it's just Elizabeth Warren holding him up with strings.
It'll be like Weekend at Hillary's, only better.
Yes, because it's closer to the movie title. Weekend at Biden's. Woohoo! And Weekend at Biden's 2, Putin Returns. Hold on. I need to see if that's a GIF somewhere.
If it is,
needs to be happen.
If it is, send it to me because I will put it in the episode on the for
if
YouTube.
It's not a meme. I need one of our faithful viewers to make it one.
I'll make it one.
Yes, it's a thing. It's a thing.
Oh, thank God.
Thank you.
Send it to me on
You've
Facebook
made
Messenger.
me happy.
Send it to me on Facebook Messenger. I'll check it.
Oh my gosh, this is real and it makes me happy.
Anyway, all right. I don't think there's anything more we can say. This is the Democratic Party's best foot forward. And this is his opening statement and the last hurrah. This is the last debate before Super Tuesday. Biden's gonna win.
His last debate.
That's entirely possible. If he makes it through the new year, I'll just be impressed. If he makes it to the general election, I'll be amazed. If he makes it to the first presidential debate, I might fucking stand and applaud for the man.
I'm already applauding for him. I think we should elect Joe just because I would pay to see our president strip naked and waggle it at Putin. That in and of itself is such a strong move politically. I think it would better our nation. I mean, yeah, the economy would go down and he would think that he was king of Candyland, but that's not the point. I support you, Joe. I just want you to know I support you. Probably not for the reasons you'd like, but what can I say? I like chaos.
Let's be real here, though.
Also,
if he hears you support him, he's not going to listen to the reasons you do.
It's true. I'd vote for Biden just to watch the world burn, but I'm that guy. You need to check your Facebook Messenger, and you need to see the glory that I have sent you.
Hold on, because I saw it pop
which
up.
is probably being monitored by the FBI. I swear to God, I hear a drone. Oh man! I can't
By the
believe
way,
that's a thing.
audience,
It makes me happy.
leave a question, leave a comment for us because I do need input on this. Would y'all buy our shirt if I made one?
Oh God, are we going to be those people?
Or is it too early?
It's too early. Like 4 people listen to us.
You
like
want
3 of them know that I hate them. They won't buy our shirts.
you want merch? Or you want money off this?
We've got 3 people. Is it really nice of us to deprive the 3 people who listen to us of like what does a shirt go for these days? Like $10, $20? I don't know. Point is, our viewers are probably poor because smart people tend to be poor for some reason. It's a great system we've got here.
Anyway. Alright, so the next one is an interesting one, and it involves our dear friend Castro. And then Buttigieg.
Buttigie's okay. If I had to pick, gun to my head, Buttigie's alright.
In, and I would not require them to opt in. They would automatically be enrolled. They wouldn't have to buy in. That's a big difference because Barack Obama's vision was not to leave 10 million people uncovered. He wanted every single person in this country covered. My plan would do that. Your plan would not.
They do not have to buy in. They do not have to buy in.
You just said that. You just said that 2 minutes ago. You just said 2 minutes ago that they would have to buy in. You said they would have to buy in.
Have to buy in. If she qualifies for Medicaid,
are you forgetting what you said 2 minutes ago?
Be in for it.
Are you forgetting already what you said just 2 minutes ago? I mean, I can't believe that you said 2 minutes ago that they had to buy in, and now you're saying they don't have to buy. You're forgetting that.
I said anyone
I mean,
like your
look,
grandma.
This is why presidential debates are becoming unwatchable.
Yeah,
This reminds everybody of what they cannot stand about Washington. Scoring points against each other, poking at each other, and telling each other that you're my plan, your plan. Look, we all
that's called a Democratic primary election.
I see we're
Again,
not.
I say, what the fuck?
I see we're not the only ones who noticed Biden's slip-ups.
You think? It's almost as if someone half competent could see what's going on here.
I wouldn't call
But, you know,
Castro any sort of competent. Let's be real here. A competent politician would be further up the field than he is.
it's kind of hard to win a rigged race. Let's be real.
That's fair.
That being said, I do agree with our good friend Buddy. The debates are unwatchable, and he sounds like a sane man crying out in a room full of morons. I disagree with him on all matters of policy, but when it comes to the fact that he seems to be the only one that's self-aware, I'm going to give that one to Buttigieg. And quite honestly, I think they should run Buttigieg, but instead they're going to give us crazy Joe Biden, who I fully support.
You don't really get it. The far left doesn't like Buttigieg.
Because he makes sense.
The far left doesn't like Buttigieg because he is self-aware. And he won't virtue signal about him being gay.
No, I don't think that came up once during the debate, and I appreciate that. That's why I think Buttigieg would be the best candidate for them to run, but I want them to run Joe. Please run Joe.
Assuming Joe can run by the end of the year. Let's be real here. He's going to be a corpse sooner rather than later.
Weekend at Biden's 2. There's a reason Obama kept him locked in the White House basement.
Good Lord, yes. Joe Biden's always been a gaffe master, but this is taking it to a whole nother level. This is like Grandpa, not really knowing. This is Grandpa wandering
the Democratic Party. I love that the Democratic Party is with me and saying that this is going to be great. Let's run Joe Biden. It's wonderful. They need to do it. Commit. Back Joe Biden 100% because it's funny. Which is the same reason I backed Trump in 2016 after Rand got eliminated, because it was funny. And it was great because all of the intended and desired effects happened. Now let's run Joe. We'll have Joe who doesn't know where he is, and Trump who doesn't know how to handle Joe. Not because he's not ready, but because when you ask someone, what are you going to do about trade, and they say, bomb the Russians, I mean, the debates are going to be entertaining.
Fair enough.
We're going to build a wall. What's Joe Biden going to do about the Russians? Long live the Tsar! That's exactly my point.
All right, so
yeah, he's that old.
We're skipping a good chunk here, but don't worry, I'll link it. Links in the description if anyone actually wants to sit through this 2-hour snore fest. But these are the highlights. Trust me, I've watched this thing 3 times for y'all. You'll need to understand this. I've watched it 3 times so I could find these things.
Sucks to suck.
So, yeah, trust me. I'll link in the description because I don't want to be accused of taking the whole debate out of context, but trust me, these are the highlights. All right, so our next clip
I'll take the
is
whole debate out of context.
our next clip, I think, is Harris getting murdered on stage by a question. I'm not sure, though.
I remember that one.
Yeah.
I remember that one. That was a good one.
So let's let our audience listen to that real quick, and then we'll give our comments.
You know, I called this out in no uncertain terms on August 3rd and every day since then, and I was talking about it long before then as well. Racism in America is endemic. It is foundational. We can mark the creation of this country not at the 4th of July, 1776, but August 20th, 1619, when the first kidnapped African was brought to this country against his will and in bondage and as a slave, built the greatness and the success and the wealth that neither he nor his descendants would ever be able to fully participate in and enjoy. We have to be able to answer this challenge, and it is found in our education system, where in Texas, a 5-year-old child in kindergarten is 5 times as likely to be disciplined or suspended or expelled based on the color of their skin. In our healthcare system, where there's a maternal mortality crisis 3 times as deadly for women of color, or the fact that there's 10 times the wealth in white America than there is in black America. I'm going to follow Sheila Jackson Lee's lead and sign into law a reparations bill that will allow us to address this at its foundation.
All right, we're back from our short intermission. I apologize because the clip you just heard was not Kamala Harris being murdered by a moderator. It was Beto O'Rourke being an idiot. But in our short intermission, Ryan got another beer. So what are you drinking now?
Haha, I'm glad you asked. I'm sticking to the theme. I'm having a Weinstefaner. But this time I've switched over to a Pilsner, so that requires a new glass and everything else. It's still out of the Straßbrauerei in Friesling, Germany. Same brand, different type of beer. A Pilsner is a little more rich, I think, than the Dunkelbrau, which was a lot smoother. But still, Weinstefaner beer. That is the go-to this week, and might be next week, who knows. But I branched out from Hefeweizens, and I am now trying Pilsners and Dunkelbraus, because I'm cultured and not a heathen, like other people who may co-host this show who shall remain nameless.
Yeah.
And moving on.
So, I believe when this clip played, I think I sent you this one after the first time through. This is when you said you wanted to murder Beto on, so I'll let you have that.
For legal reasons, I never said that.
Fair enough.
Second, was that the clip where he said America started in like 1619?
Yes.
Okay, let me just start by saying, what a racist fuck. No. Screw you, Native Americans. You did not build America. Your history does not count as American history. No. According to Beta, aka Francis O'Rourke, history for America did not begin until slaves were brought to America. So screw your struggles. Screw the injustices that hurt you. According to the Democratic Party and Francis O'Rourke, your part of history, your contribution to America, does not matter. American history did not start until 1619. So screw your struggles, screw your suffering, screw the injustices you served. You are lower on the social justice totem pole than the African slave. Your part of history, according to Beto O'Rourke, does not count as American history. You're not Americans. Welcome back to 1948. That's what you're going to get if you vote for someone who panders so hard that he forgot your entire demographic existed.
But
that speaks for itself.
This statement also ignores the fact that white people were enslaved in the U.S. before this. They were called indentured servants.
They're called the Irish.
Or Irish, yeah.
They were called the Irish. Same word, different usage.
Fair enough.
Yeah, no, but we're not going to get. You know that the left won't hear that. The enslaved Irish is a part of history that like 6 people know about. No, they have gone and they have omitted a non-white group of people's contribution to America.
Very true.
So therefore, I am forced to conclude that Beto O'Rourke, Francis O'Rourke, is a racist.
That or he's just
he has completely negated the struggle of the Native American people prior to 1619, and they did and suffer injustices before 1619. But according to Francis, America's history doesn't start until the African slave arrived. So, sorry, Native Americans, your story doesn't count. It only matters to the African Americans. Sorry, play again next time. Maybe the next time you get wiped out by an oppressing class, you should do it with more songs.
And this is wholly inaccurate to history too. The first like lifelong slave was a black and African slave. Was an indentured servant that ran away, thus breaking his contract. So a judge condemned him to life within that contract. That was the first.
Can we not forget that the first person who brought slaves over was a black man?
Really? I didn't know that.
Yes, he demanded he be allowed to bring slaves over. And I forget what his name was. I want to say it's James, but let's be real. In that time period, everybody was named James.
Fair enough.
That's like shooting in the dark there.
Yeah.
The first slave owner in the United States was a black man.
That's not shocking.
Look it up. Try me. I'm right, and I know I'm right, but it doesn't matter because we're just going to completely skip on that. I mean, that's interesting, but that's not what I'm talking about. He negated an entire genocided race of people in order to pander to African Americans.
Very true. Not only to African Americans, but to the far left in general.
Existed. Exactly, but they forgot the Native Americans existed. So that means that you are politically less useful to him than the African American, and therefore, until you become politically useful, your history doesn't count. That is basically what Beto is saying. Because history didn't start until 1619, so let's forget about the smallpox blankets and the disease. I mean,
actually, smallpox.
I'm pretty sure the first Thanksgiving was before that too.
Smallpox blankets didn't happen. It's generally considered a myth.
No shit. But did they just trade blankets that just happened to have disease on them? Because I could see that happening.
Entirely possible. They didn't really understand how diseases work back then. Not to the extent we do now.
They didn't do inoculations, so they didn't understand the process of inoculations and stuff until 18 something.
Exactly. And supposedly this happened. The only disease I think that they had inoculated against was polio, and that was the general knowledge was they didn't understand how diseases work. I think the general consensus was it was still miasma, because you have that.
You're gonna laugh at me, but weirdly enough, I was playing a video game. It's called Empire Total War. Most of our viewers are probably familiar with it. But it follows a very accurate timeline. I've actually fact-checked this game a couple of times. An inoculation was done in the 17 or 1800s by a man who found someone who had smallpox and took some dead skin off of them and made an inoculation out of it. And I don't have the specifics, and I'm willing to admit that, but no, straight up, I learned from Total War that inoculation happened a lot earlier, but it was just a novelty idea at the time.
Yeah.
When it started in earnest, I don't know enough to comment on. But again, we're off track. Beto O'Rourke has basically forgotten Native Americans exist, and if that's not racism, as far as I understand the textbook definition of racism, as per the Democratic Party, that's just racist.
But let's move on from that, because he said some other things, and you don't want to touch on this because you're a hammer. I'm a scalpel.
Yep.
He stated that in Houston, a young black child is 5 times more likely to be expelled or suspended simply on the basis of the color of their skin. Now, what this is based on, and I remember seeing this because it made its rounds a while ago, I think 2 years ago, among people that do look into these sorts of things. It was a study. And basically when you examine the methodology of the study, it doesn't explain how they reached this conclusion. It doesn't explain like how big the sample size was how many schools were tested. It doesn't explain any of that, which makes it a very suspect or at least very flawed study to begin with.
You mean the thing that would be required if either you or I were to write an academic? We're getting to the academic part of the academic Alehouse now.
For the first time ever.
Basic things, right? That we would have been required to put as a footnote in our papers, the source of the data, the sample size, all the basic shit to get a bachelor's degree in college was not included in the study. Is that what I'm hearing?
I mean, it may have been included. I don't remember because this was 2 years ago, but I remember it being not a very accurate study, and didn't really. I think it was just like a general measurement of like how many students got suspended and such.
Okay, so just out of question, did this study happen to publish the percentage of black students in that school? As in, if it was a 90% black school, wouldn't it make sense that more black kids got suspended than whites?
No, see, that's what I think. Like, what I remember is a flaw. That's one of the flaws in the study. It doesn't tell you, like, it doesn't break down the school's population. It doesn't tell you which schools were sampled. Things like that. I think it was just like
So
they took an aggregate
to-
of suspensions and said, "This is what we've concluded." And so the media ran
So
with it.
they had enough data to get a C in college, because that sounds like basically a C if your professor was generous, and they ran with it. They did a C-level paper with minimal research, ran with it, and the media picked it up.
Yep. He also mentioned Sheila Jackson Lee, who is an awful human being, should be imprisoned for embezzlement, and has signed into law a reparations bill. That's all that statement deserves.
Reparations bill?
As for the motherhood mortality rate, I don't know enough about that to comment.
Reparations bill.
Yes.
Are we there? Are we there in the show right now? Are we gonna talk about that? Do we have to?
At this point, no. I think my statement is enough.
Good.
An
I feel like just from the tone of my voice,
embezzler
our viewers-
signed into law a bill that would give her money. That let's be real, that's what happened. We need to step no further.
Fox signs henhouse legislation. That's all I got there.
Yeah, me too.
I think we've covered the basic points of how I feel about it.
Yep. All right. Next clip.
Next.
And
It does contradict some of your prior positions. Among them, you used to oppose the legalization of marijuana, now you don't. You used to oppose outside investigations of police shootings, now you don't. You've said that you changed on these and other things because you were, quote, swimming against the current, and thankfully the currents have changed. But when you had the power, why didn't you try to effect change then?
well, that was an interesting clip. I was off by one, but that was an interesting clip. Don't you just enjoy watching murder on a stage?
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm very glad that they finally gave these candidates hard questions, because they've been softballing them for 2 debates. It's about time they had the screws put in a little. They weren't ready. None of the candidates were ready. The only one who didn't really get even he got hardballed. Everyone got hardballed, and it's about time. Because let's be real, in 2016, the moderators really didn't hardball the Democratic candidates, and it bit them in the ass when they got to the debate stage with Trump. They should consider this a very light boot camp for what they're going to deal with when they deal with Donald Trump.
I
Because
agree.
they're not going to get softball questions when they're on the stage with the big man. It's just not going to happen. If he has to answer a hard question, so do they.
I agree. And what's shocking though is that this clearly indicates the fact that this question went through at all, because you know the DNC, at the very least, the DNC is corrupt enough to have gone through these questions beforehand. I'm surprised they let that one through. I'm surprised they let another one through later, But I'm surprised they let this one through. Because if they had... Because this is just showing their hand. This is the DNC showing their hand and saying, hey, we knew this question was probably going to be asked of Kamala Harris, but we're just going to let it by because we don't believe Kamala Harris can beat Trump. She's not a viable candidate. She's not our candidate. We can let her stew.
Was this an attempt by the DNC to delegitimize Harris and curb her as a threat to Joe Biden?
I don't think so. I think this is the DNC saying, we are not going with you. I think this is a clear message to Harris, and in the video you can kind of see it on her face. She's sort of shocked to have received this question, but it very much is the DNC saying to Harris and the audience, we're not going with you. And since Gabbard cut her off at the legs, and which is why she's not on the debate stage. I think we covered that 2 weeks ago.
We did. I feel like we did.
We definitely did. Since she cut Harris off at the knee, Harris has not been a viable candidate. She's fallen far behind Buttigieg and the others. So yeah, so Harris isn't a viable candidate, and this is basically the DNC screaming at her and sticking the knife in her chest. No, we're not going with you. We're killing your presidential hopes now.
But again, we're going with Crazy Joe, and I fully support that. Let it happen. Let Joe Biden, for the love of God, do the inaugural address in a bunny suit. Just, please. Some of us need this. I need this. Bunny suit Biden. Let it happen.
By the way, this was one of the reasons Harris would have never made it to the White House, even if she'd gotten the nomination. Her prosecutorial record's awful. Trump would have crucified her on this if Gabbard hadn't.
That's because that's the difference. That's the difference. They'll look at Trump and go, "You bought hookers," and Trump will look at the camera and go, "Hell yeah, I bought hookers." Whereas Harris just tries to deflect.
Yeah.
I think that's Don's strength. Is you bought hookers and paid them to keep quiet. He'd go, "Yeah, didn't work too well, but I did that." And the world just doesn't know what to do. He's shameless, and I respect that. As a shameless person myself. Right, and that's where I come at it. You said that women were objects. I'm a millionaire. I buy and sell my wife. And the media doesn't know what to do. And me, I'm like, you know what? He's an asshole, but at least he's an open asshole. He's not an asshole who tries to convince me I'm crazy for thinking he's an asshole. He basically says, I'm an asshole. Here's my dick. And you know what? I may not like it, but I respect it.
Yep.
At this point, I never feel like Donald Trump is lying to me. I feel like Donald Trump he doesn't give a shit enough to lie to me. And while maybe that's not, a likable person, I can respect that to a certain degree. I mean, yeah, fuck you. I don't care about your vote. Okay. All right.
Yeah. I think honestly,
he's not going to sit there and pat me on the shoulder and go, "You matter," when he doesn't know. Fuck you. Fuck your vote. I don't care. I'm Donald Trump. Smoke bomb.
Honestly, given Trump's nature, I'm surprised that if someone that he thought for better for the job than him had come forward in the GOP, he probably would have stepped aside and let them have it.
No, but he knew he could fuck their worlds, and he did. To quote South Park, he fucked them all to death.
I meant in current election, not in 2016.
Well, who have the GOP given us? That one guy from that one state who I forget already?
And Joe Walsh. Yes. Nobody interesting. And nobody worth a damn. So, I mean, who knows?
So are there going to be Republican debates if this guy's running against Trump?
No, not after the cancellations.
Cancellations?
Yeah, the GOP canceled primaries.
Are we talking like Oh, I was gonna say when we
Yeah,
said
we covered this last
cancellation,
week.
Are we talking like? Oh yeah, we did. We're not talking like Hillary cancellations where Joe Walsh just suddenly disappeared.
No.
The DNC or the RNC just said we're not funding this.
Yeah, basically.
God, different kind of cancellation. Sorry, we were talking about the DNC. I thought he actually got canceled.
Nope.
Like by a drone.
All right, our next clip is Joe Biden.
Because
And
when
I
the
can't.
DNC fires you, they do it out of a cannon.
Yep. All right, our next clip is Joe Biden, and I can only assume I put this in here because it was funny. So let's see.
Before, I'm the only one up here who's ever beat the NRA. Only one ever beat the NRA nationally. I'm the guy that brought the Brady Bill into focus and became law. And so that's number one. Number two, after Sandy Hook, a number of things happened. It went from
I think the only reason I put that in there is because the Brady Bill, and because when we were doing this live, you reacted to it. So what do you got to say?
Okay, so I helped pass the Brady Bill. That's great. Did he also help pass the Lend-Lease Act? Joe, being old is not an advantage here. Being there when Reagan was shot is not an advantage here. How am I supposed to, in good conscience, vote for someone who says the system is broken when he is literally the system? Him, Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, Ted Cruz, fucking all of them are sitting here telling me the system is broken. They are the system. Joe is the most system that I've ever seen. Joe was probably there when they signed the bill that ordered Martin Luther King to be shot.
Good Lord.
Like, why am I? But I'm not wrong. The dude is old. He's so old he probably told Teddy riding up San Juan Hill wasn't a good idea. That doesn't make me want to vote for him. He's sitting here trying to be counter-establishment when he is so damn establishment. You can pick a gear, Joe. I was there when this was signed, or I'm not the establishment. He's trying to play between the lines when the man has literally outlived most of our presidents. He's been in Congress longer than some presidents have been alive. Either you're part of the establishment, Joe, or you're not. Pick one. I don't care which you pick, but sitting there bragging about being part of the Brady Bill while Bill was getting blown by Monica doesn't make me think you're going to change DC. You are DC. You're the thing I mock. You're the thing that I joke about. You're the thing everybody jokes about. You are part of the machine that has made this country as bad as it is, and you're trying to use that to get me to vote for you. No! Pick a gear. If you go, hey, I'm establishment, but I'm stability, I can respect that. If you go, no, everything I've done is wrong and I want to change that, I would respect that. But Joe, being Joe, goes, yes, I've been here in Congress and I've been part of the government for 67 years. But I promise that Trump is the problem. Screw you. I want you to be elected because I seriously think you would streak that you win. But if we're being serious for 5 minutes, Joe Biden is everything that's wrong with the establishment. He is the Newt Gingrich of the Democratic Party. He has been in Congress and he's been in D.C. longer than any of us have been alive. He is the reason we need term limits. That does not make me want to vote for him. That makes me want to fire him. Out of a cannon into the sun.
Damn.
Yes. He is D.C. Bernie Sanders is D.C. Newt Gingrich is D.C. Lindsey Graham is D.C. I cannot sit here and listen to another 90-year-old fossil tell me about how they're going to change everything when they've had the power to do so longer than my fucking parents have been alive. Fuck you. You don't deserve to be in D.C. You deserve to be exiled to an island. Hopefully, what's-his-face's island that got suicided, Epstein, so that you can get violated by even older people, like the Rothschilds or the Koch brothers or whoever the fuck. You are the problem. You shouldn't be voted for, not by the left, not by the right. You should be fired. I still say out of a cannon. Others may disagree with me. Joe Biden is the problem. Joe Biden is the system. If you vote for Joe, you're going to get more of the same crap that you had under Obama, the same crap you had under Jerry Ford and Nixon. This man has outlived how many presidents in office, not just alive. He has been in office longer than most presidents have made it. He was in office when Reagan was president. And guess what? Reagan's dead. Who's next? Bill? Well, he's checking out. Sorry, Bill. We all know it. If your wife doesn't get you, the chlamydia will. Who else have we got? Jimmy Carter? Like, how far back does Biden go? He is the reason we are where we are. And if he's not the direct reason, he was part of the reason. I'm not buying it. You're not going to change a goddamn thing, Joe. Of course, it doesn't matter what I think. He doesn't even remember who he is. He's thinking that he's in the gummy bear land of Happy Happy Town. So it doesn't really matter. He's the system. And I refuse to think that anyone who thinks he's a viable candidate is anything other than a baby boomer who doesn't understand that the world is changing or either way, Joe Biden promising to change the system, it's like Hitler advocating that he supports Jewish rights. Kinda. It's the same thing. It is the fox telling the chicken coop that it's crazy for suspecting that he is in fact a fox. He is the reason we are where we are, and if not directly from his action, his complacency is why we have the problems we do. Joe has had every chance in the world to change a lot of things that are wrong with this country, and he didn't because it wasn't politically prudent. And what am I supposed to believe? That if I put him in the White House, 60 years, 50 years of complete political ineptitude is going to change overnight? Screw you. That's what I say to that.
Are you done? Are you good?
Yeah, I'm out of beer, so pretty much done.
Alright, well, we'll take a quick break so you can refill, and I'll play the next clip for the audience, and by the time they're back, we're back. By the time that clip's done, we should be back. I'm glad I saved that image that ended up on last week's episode that says incoming rant.
You should save that for all the episodes.
I definitely will, because I know you and I both go off on occasion.
There's nothing I said that I don't stand behind 100%.
Very rarely do I say anything that I don't stand by. Regardless, alright.
But I'm pretty sure I just hung Joe out to dry, so.
I'm not shocked.
On guns within your first 100 days, including
Right.
banning imports of AR-15 assault weapons.
That's right.
President Obama, after Sandy Hook, more than 23 executive actions, and yet here we all are today. In recent days, former Vice President Biden has said about executive orders, some really talented people are seeking the nomination. They said, I'm going to issue an executive order. Biden saying there's no constitutional authority to issue that executive order when they say I'm going to eliminate assault weapons, saying you can't do it by executive order any more than Trump can do things when he says he can do it by executive order. Does the vice president have a point there?
Some things you can, many things you can't.
Let's let the senator answer.
Well, I mean, I would just say, hey, Joe, instead of saying no, we can't, let's say yes, we can.
Let's be constitutional. We got a constitution.
And yes, we can.
Well, that was interesting. So, Harris just basically admitted that she's willing to go around the Constitution through an executive order if she can't get what she wants.
How Obama-esque.
I know,
Let's keep
right?
setting that precedent. That's only going to go so well. You know, it's only because of the crap Obama pulled that Trump is able to get away with the things he gets away with. And instead of saying, we're going to go fix the system that allowed someone like Trump to manipulate it, the left has doubled down and said, no, we're going to cast more executive power, making the executive branch more powerful if elected, because fuck you, and there's no way this is going to bite us in the ass again this time.
Nope.
That's what I'm getting. That's what I'm getting from this.
Yeah. But this is all to establish gun control laws. Which I think our viewers have our position on this. And we're about to, I think the next clip is going to be Beto's little buyback, which I have something to say on. I think you've said
By all
enough.
means, take the lead. I think we all know where I stand on it.
Yep. So I get a little bit of this. I get to chew on Beto's ass for a little bit. Ew. Never mind.
What
Don't.
ass?
That's fair. That's very fair. That's very fair.
Skinny little prick.
He is. Regardless, really, we're advocating at this point. We're so desperate to pander to the far left, or at least the DNC is, that they're advocating going around
Civil War.
our Constitution. Insanity. I can't believe this escaped people's notice. All right,
Yeah, here we are.
I think we'll have more substance for the next clip. So let's get to that.
Said, quote, Americans who own AR-15s and AK-47s will have to sell them to the government, all of them. You know, the critics call this confiscation. Are you proposing taking away their guns, and how would this work?
I am. If it's a weapon that was designed to kill people on a battlefield, if the high impact, high velocity round, when it hits your body, shreds everything inside of your body because it was designed to do that so that you would bleed to death on a battlefield and not be able to get up and kill one of our soldiers. When we see that being used against children, and in Odessa, I met the mother of a 15-year-old girl who was shot by an AR-15, and that mother watched her bleed to death over the course of an hour because so many other people were shot by that AR-15 in Odessa and Midland. There weren't enough ambulances to get to them in time. Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15, your AK-47. We're not going to allow it to be used against our fellow Americans anymore.
Congressman, thank you.
And I want to say this.
Finally it's time for the clip I've alluded to basically since the beginning. I hope you all enjoyed, because here I go. He got his rant, I get mine. Dear Congressman, fuck you. You are a conniving, sipient little snake. First of all, let's just start by examining the statements made, because that's where I'm going to start, because it's how I do. So he starts off with saying that, yes, I'm going to take your guns away. I am confiscating your guns. This is shocking to me, because in previous years, the left has always been, oh, we want to disarm the populace because we're authoritarians and guns scare us. Listen, we have a boner for our own power.
Oh,
But it's always been, no, we're not taking your guns away. We're just making it safe. It's for the children. It's for the safety of the populace. Beto, for once, I'll give him credit for this, has come out and said what we've all known for years. The left wants to take the guns from the populace because they're scared.
Standing ovation was a giveaway.
But further, it leads me to another thought. A rather frightening thought. Because one of two things is true here. When you get right down to it, examining Beto's statement, just this very single statement. Yes, I'm taking the guns away. You're going to have to give me your guns. If it was designed for the battlefield, it shouldn't be in the hands of civilians. Which means no more revolvers. Everybody keeps their AR-15s, though. Kudos. But really, either one of two things is true. Either A, Beto O'Rourke is completely ignorant of the implications of this, and he genuinely believes his head is so far up his own non-existent ass that he believes people will willingly surrender their weapons. Or number two, he is perfectly okay with being the single cause for the Second American Civil War. Now, I think we both agree The Civil War, the first Civil War, had multiple causes and multiple reasons as to why it started. Beto is perfectly okay with being the singular, there will be nothing else, singular cause for American blood spilled by other Americans on American soil once again.
But why should he care? He's not putting on any body armor anytime soon. He's not going to be at the front of the stack. Why does Beto O'Rourke care? He's sending someone else to do that job. As, you know, I've always wondered, we're sending people to take your guns. Who are those people exactly? The police you despise or the military you want to defund?
But really, it's not... But really, who wants to be history's villain? Who wants to be Hitler? Nobody wants to be Hitler. Nobody wants to be remembered as the guy. Nobody wants to be remembered as that guy. Nobody on earth wants to be remembered as that guy. Which I can only conclude either Beto O'Rourke has shoved his head so far up his own colon that his face is being melted by his own stomach acid, or he's perfectly okay with being history's villain. Because he will be. He will be demonized. If he got into office, which I don't believe he will, in any state, or even the presidency, he would be demonized for years. He would be the boogeyman we'd use. But that's not the end. Because then...
Of course not.
He talks about Odessa, where I believe the gun used was a handgun. And
it was.
It was?
I believe so.
Yeah.
If I remember
and he says
correctly.
A young girl bled out and died because they couldn't get an ambulance to her, which I do believe. The Daily Mail published an article that had clips, just like little snippets of the officer conversation. It was very eye-opening for this specific shooting. Excuse me. But it was a handgun, and really, I don't want to say I don't believe him, because that would be rude to this family that possibly lost this mother who possibly lost a daughter. But you couldn't drive her to the hospital yourself?
Not if there's... Well, you got to realize people respond to situations differently. If there was an active shooter and, you know, you don't have all the information in a situation like that, if you believed there was an active shooter and you were behind cover and there was someone, you know, family, friend, squad mate, whatever, for the military people, bleeding out, and you believed if you poked your head around the corner, you'd get your face shot off, unless you're trained for something like that. And let's be honest, even people who are trained for something like that, you make a choice, unconscious or otherwise. If you're not trained, you're going to stay where it's safe for you as long as you can, or you're going to freeze, which, you know, freezing is a completely natural response. But what it comes down to is they might not have known the shooter had been put down. So if they thought if they poked their head out, they would be next. And so they opted to stay behind cover. And you cannot cite the mother for that. Because, again, there are people who go through the military, through boot camp, through training, who, when the time comes, still freeze up. And they've been trained for the situation. So it would be very crass of us to expect a civilian to behave any differently.
I agree.
Or any better. Now, sure, there are people who could maybe handle the situation in a more collected manner, but that's the exception, not the rule. So, yeah, if you're sitting there watching your daughter bleeding out, but you're not trained for this and you're frozen in fear, you know, it's not out of the realm of things that I would be surprised by.
My main issue is that it came out of Beto O'Rourke's mouth, so it means I put about as much investment into it being true as I would the devil himself. You know.
Did this person exist and did this happen? I don't know.
Yeah.
Honestly, mass shootings are so common now. They honestly all run together in my head. Again, call me crass if you want. They're a very common occurrence. They used to shock the world. Now it's just every time one happens, and I'm going to be honest, my first thought is, crap. I'm not going to get on the internet for about 3 days. Because that's the attention span of the American people. About 3 days. Unless something specifically heinous happened. Example, shooting of a black church, shooting of a mosque, targeting of Hispanic peoples. Those 3 things I'm not getting on Facebook for a week.
Fair enough.
2 if I'm feeling particular. But honestly, at this point, I see this slaughter. I see this horror. And I am more disgusted. Don't get me wrong. The acts themselves, cowardly, violent, terrible. But the aftermath is so sickening because the bodies aren't even cold yet before it starts. Guns, guns, guns. Protect the Second Amendment. Defend the Second. These bodies aren't even in the morgue yet, and people on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, blah, 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 start up. And it sickens me. So I just don't even bother. I am more disgusted by what people do after the shootings than the shootings themselves. Sue me if you want. That's how I feel. The general population's reaction to mass shootings is so sick that I find it the worst part of a mass shooting. I feel terrible for the families that suffer mass shootings, but the people afterwards are 100 times more insufferable, whether they be pro-gun or anti-gun. They can't wait for the bodies to be in the ground yet before they start their bullshit, and it makes me physically ill. That's my take on mass shootings. I know we've done quite a bit to avoid mass shootings on this show, and I continue to do that. Yep. But what sickens me, America, about mass shootings is you. You sicken me about mass shootings. The shooters, the victims, very sad. It in and of itself is separate from how disgusting I think the American people are when the minute a mass shooting happens. Else, the first instinct we, the American people, have is to start fighting with each other and blaming a gun, a person, mental illness. We don't care about the victims as America, and I'm willing to call America out about it. Nobody gives a damn about the victims. They see a political opportunity, and they take it, and it makes me sick. And that's why when a mass shooting happens, I refuse to talk about it, because I will not be one of the countless thousands of voices trying to cash in on other people's misfortune and other people's murder, and I will not be one of the people who tries to advance my political views on the backs of the dead. Now, we may lose 1 of our 3 viewers for that viewpoint, but I don't care. You can suck it. America, you disgust me. Mass shootings are not political opportunities. And if we stopped treating them as political opportunities and stopped infamizing the people who committed them, maybe we wouldn't have so many. But no one listens to me because that would make too much goddamn sense. Your turn.
I'm good. I stand in complete agreement with what you just said. So let's move on to the next clip.
Vice President Biden, as a presidential candidate in 2008, you supported the border wall, saying, unlike most Democrats, I voted for 700 miles of fence. This is what you said. Then you served as vice president in an administration that deported 3 million people, the most ever in U.S. history. Did you do anything to prevent those deportations? I mean, you've been asked this question before and refused to answer, so let me try once again. Are you prepared to say tonight that you and President Obama made a mistake about deportations? Why should Latinos trust you?
What Latinos should look at is comparing this president to the president we have is outrageous, number one. We didn't lock people up in cages. We didn't separate families. We didn't do all of those things, number one. Number two, by the time, this is the president who came along with the DACA program. No one had ever done that before. This is the president who sent legislation to the desk saying he wants to find a pathway for the 11 million undocumented in the United States of America. This is the president who's done a great deal. So I'm proud to have served with him. What I would do as president is several more things, because things have changed. I would, in fact, make sure that we immediately surge to the border. All those people are seeking asylum. They deserve to be heard. That's who we are. We're a nation that says if you want to flee and you're fleeing oppression, you should come. I would change the order that the president just changed, saying women who were being beaten and abused could no longer claim that as a reason for asylum. And by the way, retrospectively, you know, the 25th anniversary of the Violence Against Women Act is up. The Republican Congress has not reauthorized it. Let's put pressure on them to pass the Violence Against Women Act now. But then we'll go back.
You didn't answer the question.
Well,
the question is, did you make a mistake with those deportations?
The president did the best thing that was able to be done at the time.
How about you?
I'm the vice president of the United States.
Well, once again, Joe Biden doesn't know where he is, but really, I'm just surprised at the question. Did Obama make a mistake in deporting 3 million immigrants? And then Joe's defense was we didn't put them in cages. We didn't do any of that. That didn't happen under the president. All we did...
Yes, it did.
And then the guy comes back and says, I asked you if you made a mistake. And then he steps up and defends Obama again and says the president did what the president had to do. And then he asked about him, and he said, I'm the vice president of the United States. Which begs the question...
Hold on. To be fair, if you put Mike Pence and Joe Biden next to one another, I wouldn't be able to tell the difference either. But Joe is so far gone, he probably does think that's him on stage.
I can tell Mike Pence from Joe Biden. You know why? Because every time I look at Mike Pence...
Gay and they'll electrocute you?
Yes. Damn it, you walked over my joke.
If you walk by Mike Pence, you get a slight shock.
Yes! Every time I look at Mike Pence, I feel a jolt up my spine. Fuck you, you walked over my joke.
And what, when you look at Joe, you just look at someone who currently thinks he's Napoleon Bonaparte?
Yes.
You can be salty, but let's be real.
I'm very salty.
Jokes about that with you for 4 years. Yes, and that's how you tell the difference. I know it's hard to tell. They're both 90 million years old. They're both white, and they both have hair that's whiter than they are. But if you need to tell the difference between Joe Biden and Mike Pence, simply put a gay in front of them and see which one gets electrocuted. The one that does the electrocuting is Mike Pence. But also it might be Joe Biden thinking that he's turning on a Save the World pump. It could go either way. Honestly, at this point, I would be surprised if Joe Biden didn't think that he was putting on a cape at night and saving Gotham City. But the point is, poor Joe probably doesn't know he's not vice president.
Fair enough. But really, like...
Joe doesn't know he's not vice president anymore.
He looked like such a fool ducking that question, though.
Of course he did. He doesn't even know.
There was no way to make that question look good, in fairness, but...
No, but he failed so spectacularly that it was worth noting.
Yes, it was.
So was it a mistake? I'm the vice president, damn it! No, you're not. I shall invade Russia.
Alright, so we got...
I just feel like Joe Biden at this point is Mr. Burns.
Yeah?
A clip that I'm reminded of, where Mr. Burns walks into the post office and goes, I need you to send this letter to the Grand Duchy of the Prussian Empire. And then walks out, and the post guy is just confused. I feel like that's Joe at this point.
Probably.
He's trying to open up relations with the Rhodesians. Joe doesn't know.
Alright, I think we've got a few more clips, but we should be done. I'm sorry if this one goes over long. This is a bit...
I'm not, fuck you.
This is a bit more than we're used to handling.
So to follow up on what Elizabeth said, why are we losing to the fossil fuel companies? Yeah. Why are we losing to the gun lobby and the NRA? And the answer is this. We all know, everyone on the stage knows, that our government has been overrun by money and corporate interests. Now, everyone here has a plan to try and curb those corporate interests, but we have to face facts. Money finds a way. Money will find its way back in. So what is the answer? The answer is to wash the money out with people-powered money. My proposal is that we give every American 100 democracy dollars that you can only give to candidates and causes that you like. This would wash out the lobbyist cash by a factor of 8 to 1. That is the only way we will win. And as someone running for president, I'll tell you, there's the people on one side and the money on the other. The only way for us to win is if we bring them together.
Well, that was an interesting clip.
I mean, I'm kind of running out of steam here. There's so much to go on.
Okay, so, Mr. Yang, I have a question. For my 100 democracy dollars, can I make it rain on dem hoes?
Oh God, the mental image I just got was Nancy Pelosi on a pole. Oh God.
Why would you go there?
I don't know.
Nancy Pelosi isn't a hoe. Nancy Pelosi isn't one of them hoes.
Yes, she is, because you can only spend the democracy dollars on politicians. And I don't know why, but instead of going for the younger AOC up on there on the pole dancing for dem democracy dollars.
Fuck that, AOC's a whore. AOC's a cow.
I need to drink.
AOC looks like a cow. That's probably why she wants to ban them.
Better alternative to picturing Nancy up there. Oh my God.
Picture a Republican woman up there. They're much hotter.
No, they're not. Oh God, Brain, why have you done this to me? I'm gonna continue trying to kill you with alcohol. This is war.
All right, we've got one more.
Those democracy dollars.
All right, we've got one more, and it's our and we start where we end. And the lovely Kamala Harris.
Oh God.
And I believe this one's about climate change or something. It really doesn't matter. Who the hell cares?
At least that one doesn't have me picturing Nancy in a thong. Good God.
You know, she probably wears a thong on the Senate floor.
But you know what? Kamala Harris is still a step up from Nancy, okay? Not a far step, but a step nonetheless.
Fair enough. All right, so let's watch this next clip.
This is a critical point. If a black child has a black teacher before the end of 3rd grade, they are 13% more likely to go to college. If that child has had 2 black teachers before the end of 3rd grade, they are 32% more likely to go to college. So when we talk about investing in our public education system, it is...
I think you had something you wanted to do?
Yes. First of all, why do you keep making me watch this? But second of all, that is also racist, and because of all the racist crap I've had to listen to tonight, I am introducing a new thing to the academic alehouse, the gong of racism. And right now, I am banging the gong of racism. That is some racist shit. You had something?
My question is, where the hell did she get these figures? I mean,
from the intern under the podium. Oh wait, that's just Bill.
Black high school graduation rates are not high by any means. But really? That seems like such a specific percentile. 31%. 31% with just one black teacher. Assuming they remember that black teacher throughout the rest of their academic career. Really?
Yeah, I really wish they'd do the debates with, like, sources cited. That would make our lives so much easier trying
It
to
really
figure out
would.
how the hell they come to these conclusions.
I mean, if I'm wrong,
Yeah,
I'm perfectly
I have
happy
to cite sources to get a degree.
I mean, if I'm wrong, I'm perfectly happy to admit that. I'll be happy to admit I don't know what she's citing, but really, this seems like such an oddly specific number. It can only be made up.
Maybe. We'll have to dig into it. Maybe one of our viewers is a little more put together than we are.
Probably. But alright, so I have a surprise for you. Because you left before this happened, and I only saw this at the tail end of my second viewing when I was trying to find all these highlights. So I'm going to play this real quick for y'all. Well, and then we're going to close out. Because this one has definitely gone over.
I never counted any professional setback I have as a serious setback. There's things that are important, things that are unimportant.
We're going to clear the protesters now. Just 1 minute.
Well, did you enjoy?
What the fuck?
The DNC
is being tired of protesting Trump events that they started protesting their own.
This is so rich, though, isn't it?
I mean,
the party that has men
who hung themselves off of a bridge to protest something. What they were protesting, I'm not sure, but they dead-ass, like, bungee jumped off a bridge in Houston.
I have not heard of this. This seems interesting.
Yes. No, they did. I don't know what they were protesting, but they were Democrats. They were really pro-Democrat, and they were, like, jumping off of a bridge with streamers and shit.
What's funnier, though...
Meanwhile,
is that they're so far in the back that you can't hear what they're protesting about.
Well, to be fair, front row seats are expensive, and most of these people are still fighting for 15. Whatever happened to that movement? We're not going to talk about it. But meanwhile, I would just like to point out that while these people were jumping off of a bridge with fucking streamers protesting something, that Trump commissioned an airplane to fly over them that says socialism will kill America, make America great again 2020.
That's awesome. I love that. That's so good.
Like I said, I don't like Trump. I don't like Donald Trump. He's not someone I would go out of my way to, like, meet. However, when he does shit like this, it makes me warm. I giggle a little. It's funny. And it's always going to be funny. And for that reason, you know, I don't dislike Trump because I would do that shit if I were president. But that's also the problem. I would do that shit. And that's not good shit to do. That's both the reason I like him and the reason it's a problem is because I would do those things and I will never be president. So, for him to do them, it's
never
funny,
say never.
But also, I would do the same thing and it's concerning.
Alright, well, that's all I had. Those are the highlights of the DNC's most recent debate. I hope you enjoyed.
Thank God there won't be another one.
We'll probably bring the next topic on, at least on this top thing, will be probably after Super Tuesday. We'll just give an update on...
Oh, God. It's not over.
No,
God,
it's not. It's not over yet. I mean, by the time Super Tuesday's over, though, it'll basically be done. The candidate will have been chosen.
You mean Joe Biden?
Yes.
Give Joe Biden the nuclear football. It will be glorious.
That being
He'll
said...
probably think it's an actual football and throw it at a child. It'll be beautiful.
That being said, on that note, thank you for watching the Academic Alehouse. I hope you enjoyed. Remember to subscribe to us on YouTube, like us on Facebook and Twitter. And we are on Instagram now, so look forward to pictures of the beer snobbery this man engages in.
Instagram? Oh, Jesus Christ.
On that fine note, have a wonderful day.